All right, guys, I had a different video planned for this week, but I've actually canceled it, and we're gonna talk about Xbox games coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. We're covering everything Phil Spencer revealed in an interview today, Friday, October 24th. He talked about his upcoming strategies for the country of Japan. He talked about the future of Xbox games and Nintendo Switch 2. And we're going to talk about the Xbox Ally and how that plays into this same ecosystem, and even more than that, all in today's video, starting now. Before we get into the video, I just want to mention that a very small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. But subscribing is a great way to support my channel, and it's completely free. And I upload a new video every week. And if subscribing is not your thing, liking the video is always a great way to show your support. Okay, the first thing I'm going to touch on is the Xbox handheld that's competing in the same space as the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Steam Deck. This console just came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's the exact same form factor as the Switch 2 or the Steam Deck or anything like that, but it's actually made by Xbox in collaboration with Asus. So this console is out, and it's clear that Xbox is trying to stay up to date and compete in this handheld market. We've kind of seen this handheld market explode with the ROG Ally, the AN Neo. There's honestly too many of those consoles to name. And there's also a lot of sort of bootleg consoles. I'm sure you guys have seen them on TikTok Shop. They're on Amazon. They're kind of like emulators that are emulating a whole bunch of games that they either come pre-installed or you use some shady methods to get some games on there without paying for them. But essentially, it's like handheld gaming is kind of the future. People are doing it on their phone. People are doing it on these handhelds that fit in their pocket or that are a little bit bigger, like the Switch 2. Nintendo really proved that this form factor is something that people really want. So the amount of competition in the space is higher than it ever has been. And Xbox is obviously paying attention to that. So they've released their version of the Switch 2, but it lacks a lot. It's an early product, but they're just trying to compete. There's nothing really too notable to cover about that product, I would say. I think the Switch 2 is a much better product with much better games, but we're going to touch on games in just a little bit. I guess if you don't know who Phil Spencer is, he's the CEO of Xbox. He's in charge of everything Xbox related at Microsoft. And he did an interview at a Japan Game Expo thing today. He talked about a super interesting statistic that Xbox playtime in Japan has increased by over 20% in the past year. So that goes with console gaming, that goes with PC gaming, and that also goes with like cloud gaming. So Xbox Game Pass is probably the most compelling gaming product that Xbox offers in this day and age. It's a great way to get access to a lot of games for very little money, and you don't have to buy the games yourself. There are some downsides to it. I personally prefer to own all my games. I'm not a big cloud gaming person, but if you don't have the hardware, it's like a great way in. But if you have the hardware, but you don't necessarily have the money for all the games, it's like a great way to get your foot in the door. But it's clear that Xbox is paying attention to Japan as a market segment, and they're interested in getting more leverage in that area. So Phil Spencer did say that the PC angle was the largest support of that growth for gaming in Japan. Xbox seems to have like an interesting strategy that they're going to develop starting in 2026 to sort of help them out in Japan and get more playtime across the board. So another thing that's important to keep in mind is that this console war is sort of over as we know it. And I would say Nintendo has won it. Obviously, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X still exist, the Series S as well, but Xboxes are not seeing growth in terms of purchasing. They just raised the price on them after the console's been out for years. It's not doing very well. Costco just pulled them from their shelves, okay? This console is not doing very well. So the new strategy for Xbox is going to be making games and distribute them across all platforms. So they also announced today that the new Halo game coming in 2026 will come out on the PlayStation 5, which I thought I would be dead before something like that happened. So this is like a complete deviation from anything Xbox has ever done, and it's creating a lot of chatter online. So I don't think it's unreasonable for this game, this Halo game, to come out on Switch 2 as well. Despite Xbox focusing more on games and less on consoles, Phil Spencer did confirm that there is a next Xbox in the works, and the Xbox Ally is not necessarily the next console, it's just a product that they've released, but their next console is going to be a significant product that they will like largely market towards all gamers. So he didn't really drop any hints about when that will be or what it is. He said it's still undecided. So make of that what you will. But the main takeaway for Switch 2 users is Xbox just released a handheld, so they're already focusing in on that demographic, which only means good things if you're a Switch 2 user, because it's going to result in more games for this form factor, and fingers crossed that a lot of those come to the Switch 2 in the future. One more thing that Phil Spencer cleared up was there will be no Game Pass coming to Switch 2. He just straight up did not say that it was coming. He talked more about lowering barriers and letting Xbox software meet you on different devices, but he did technically not promise Game Pass on Nintendo or Nintendo's storefront. That makes sense because if they put it on the eShop, then I think Nintendo would have to get a certain percentage of the payment that's going to Xbox, so they're probably not going to do that. But that would have been like a crazy announcement if that was possible. But it's likely we will never see that, but if we did, it would be crazy. It would really shake up the gaming ecosystem if something like that were to happen. And who knows, Nintendo might not even let that happen, because I'm pretty sure they could deny that request or deny that product from existing on their store. So this is the final thing I want to touch on. This is like the thing that inspired this entire video. And that's that Phil Spencer confirmed that some Xbox titles will be coming to the Switch 2. He talked about in this interview that they had already been discussing this with Nintendo behind closed doors, and Nintendo was reacting very positively to it. His exact quote was, "We are making efforts to lower the barrier to entry so that people can play our games through services like Xbox Play Anywhere and Xbox Game Pass. However, if someone wants to play our games on PlayStation 5 or Nintendo Switch 2, we would love for them to do so on those platforms. In that sense, we have received excellent support from both Sony and Nintendo." So, what does that mean? Definitely no Game Pass coming to Switch 2, but definitely Xbox games coming to Switch 2. And he said as early as 2026. So this is like really crazy. We could see games like Forza, we could see games like Halo. He also mentioned in the interview that, part of the release of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 being out on Switch 2 was kind of like their first step in that direction of supporting it as a console. So I didn't really think about that when that game came out. I thought it just made sense that it was being released everywhere, but that is like sort of the beginning of this foray into the Nintendo Switch 2 ecosystem for Xbox, which I fully support. So, yeah, there's like tons of people online speculating what games are going to come and, making requests. There's a lot of passion behind this new announcement that just dropped. It's the top thread on the Nintendo Switch 2 Reddit. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Which Xbox franchise would you love to see on the Switch 2? And it's also possible some of these games could even come to the Switch 1. It's like, and anything's possible, it feels like. So that's everything. I didn't really have much to record here because this was a verbal, written interview he did, but that is the big Nintendo Switch 2 news this week. I was not expecting this to come out. I was going to make a video about the future of Mario Kart World and since its launch. So look forward to that video next week. And I'll catch you guys in that one. And who knows, maybe we'll all be playing Forza together on our Switches in a couple of months. I don't know. What a year. Okay, guys. See you next week. Peace out.